This is for the first time I'm having this conversation. I'm shit scared.
I feel like a lot of people say like the Conjuring house is like the most haunted house in the States, but I would say the Bellaire house is more. The Bellaire house main spirit is said to be Emily. There's two Emilys though. Anyone in the Bellaire house that experiences anything with Emily, it's always a little girl. And she is not human. She's the demon. On the last night that we were in the Bellaire house, we realized Emily, the fake Emily, is here. And she's trying to come home with us.
When you are going to these kind of places, there is a possibility that you're also bringing those kind of energies.
I think maybe a couple of entities or spirits that have taken a liking to me during investigations that have come home. The only thing that I would say that I don't want when it comes to the paranormal and investigating is I don't want possession. Well, there was one time I thought I got possessed.
Why do these things happen middle of the night?
2 a.m. to 4 a.m. around that time period, but 3 a.m. is like the witching hour. So that's like when the veil is the thinnest between the two worlds.
Do you think witchcraft is real?
Oh, 100%. Witchcraft is like one of the oldest practiced form.
So there is a possibility that skinwalkers could be walking around us.
Oh, 100%. I believe that. I could be a skinwalker, you never know.
God save me today. I don't know what's going to happen after this conversation. Bhagwan bachana. I'm saying, God save me today. I don't know what's going to happen after this conversation. Maybe the flames are going to go off or something.
Honestly, just start growing.
Yeah, I'm really serious. This is for the first time I'm having this conversation. I'm shit scared.
I love that. Thank you for letting me be a part of that.
No, absolutely. And like I was telling you, it is such an auspicious day today in India as well. It's Dussehra where, the demon is killed by Lord Rama. And on that day, we are shooting this conversation and we're having that, we're going to talk about Satan's demonic entities, spirits and ghosts. I mean, funnily, I'll give you a little bit of a background. Like when I create content, I thought, people are interested to know about information, interesting facts about this and that. And one day I thought, you know what? Let me create content about horror movies. You won't believe, I might have got around 100 million views just through horror movies content.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And that just made me realize that, there are so many people who are just curious to know about these kind of things. Right. And I think it comes from our internal, curiosity that, do these things exist? Or is it something, a figment of your imagination and, shadow figures or something that you try to make sense of, maybe aliens in that matter? So, which is why I had to get you onto the podcast. Krista, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very spooky to be here. Was that corny?
No, not at all. I think the other thing is that when I reached out to you and I told you that, we had a 10 minutes conversation. Mm-hmm. And that 10 minutes conversation, I was literally sweating.
I have that effect on people.
But I think it's also because of the kind of this conversation that brings, it sucks the energy out of you.
It does.
Right? We have just started the conversation. I can already feel the sweat. Or maybe the vibe of this room is such that, we have created that, it is Halloween special and all of that. So just give a little bit of a background, like how did you become a paranormal investigator?
Yeah, for sure. So I became an official paranormal investigator kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, but the paranormal has been something that I've always been interested in, something that I've always known existed. I can trace back my knowledge of ghosts to my earliest memories. It was always just something that was kind of around, and that's what I always tell people when they ask like when I really got started in this. I'm like, well, it's just kind of always been there. But when I started actually actively investigating it was the beginning of the pandemic. I kind of succumbed to my interest in it. I was like, I've been interested in this. I wanted to investigate. I wanted to ask questions, explore more. I have this interest in the paranormal. So I want to investigate it. And at that point, I had just turned 25. We're in a global pandemic. And I'm like, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. If they think I'm crazy, I am. But I don't care. Like, I want to do this for me. And so that's kind of where that all started, was just, it was an interest that had been brewing for a long time, and I just decided it was time.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I think about it, like when you are growing up, nobody thinks of becoming a paranormal investigator.
No.
Right?
I didn't even know it was a career that you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when you were growing up, did you have some kind of an experiences like these which got you interested into these things or not?
Yeah. So when I think back at my earliest memories of spirits, no one ever taught me about spirits. I just kind of knew that they were around because I was experiencing them from a very young age, but it was very like minimal. There wasn't anything super outrageous, but I was aware that something that was not like me was around. And then when I was 7, I moved into my childhood home, which my parents still reside in, and that home was incredibly haunted. Don't know why, and that's kind of where all of my experiences really started to ramp up. So, there'd be knocking. One time I heard a tap turn on in the bathroom when I was in the basement bedroom all by myself. All of a sudden, a tap turns on. I can hear it like creak, and then the water rush out. I get up out of bed to go turn it off, and it turns itself off. So it's things like that. It was never anything like, the Conjuring movie status that you would hear about, but there was definitely things happening from a young age that I was like, okay, this is present. This is happening. My house is haunted. Cool. And that's that.
You were 7.
Yes, I was 7.
How did you feel during that time?
I was very scared. Actually, so for the first few years of experiencing the paranormal, I did not want to acknowledge it, so to speak. So I was experiencing these things. I was scared of it. I would talk to my parents about it. My mom does not believe in spirits, so she was like, oh, it's like, in your head. And my dad does believe in spirits, and he would tell me his ghost stories. I'm like, oh God, no, just like that's validating it more. So now, and my dad was also experiencing things in the house too, so we were just feeding off of each other. But so the first few years I was very afraid, and then I think probably maybe around 10 or 11, still quite young, I started to realize that this wasn't going away, and it was something that was around, and it was going to stay around. So I just learned to live with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But were you ever afraid of these kind of entities whenever these things happened? Like what, like you were saying, tap water drizzling down. What else?
When the tap water situation happened, I was probably in my teen years at that point. Okay. So that I wasn't afraid of, but I was like, it was more so like of course that happens. Of course it makes me get up out of bed when I'm trying to sleep, and then turns itself off. Like, it's annoying.
Like you would get up off your bed and try to turn it off.
That's like how I knew
I wouldn't get off my bed. I would think that there's a ghost beneath my bed.
So that's kind of funny because I do things like that when it comes to the paranormal. When, like, for example, my current apartment that I live in with my husband, when we moved in, it was not haunted whatsoever. This is like flash forwarding, so I'm all over the place.
That's
but
okay.
When we first moved into it at the beginning of the pandemic, not haunted at all. As I started to investigate places and dabble in the things that I dabble in and actually like actively investigating, I definitely brought something home with me, and now our apartment is haunted. So I've actually seen a shadow figure in my apartment. And there was one time I was sleeping. Well, we were sleeping. It was like probably 3 a.m. I wake up and I see a man standing in our doorway.
Oh my God.
And it was kind of like backlit because the kitchen light was on. So I could tell it was like there was a man in the doorway. So I thought it was my husband. I look over, but he's sleeping right next to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. But, and you know what? Any normal person would be like, wake up, like, go check out there's a man. I get up out of bed to go walk towards him. So, like, this is just like a thing I do, apparently. And I told my husband in the morning, he was like, why didn't you wake me up? I was like, I don't know.
Did you see a shadow figure, or was it like the whole?
It was, it was a shadow just because he was backlit. Just how clear his body frame was, I'm assuming he looked like you and I, like a full-on person. I just couldn't make any details out. I just knew he was a man by like the stature, but he was blacked out because he was backlit. Yeah.
And what time of the day was it?
3 a.m. Naturally, of course.
Why do these things happen middle of the night or somewhere during those
So
times?
3 a.m. 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. around that time period, but 3 a.m. is like the dead on the witching hour. So that's like when the veil is the thinnest between the two worlds. So, and Halloween, the Day of the Dead, that's the day when the veil is the thinnest. So imagine Halloween, 3 a.m. This didn't happen on Halloween, but I'm just saying, like, to put into perspective, if you really want to dabble with the paranormal and you really want to experience something, that is your best time to do so, because it's when the spirits can travel freely with the most ease.
So, like, whenever you go for investigations, do you specifically go during those hours, or you can go any time of the day?
It depends on the location, because sometimes we'll get a spot and they'll tell us that we have it from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Sometimes shorter, sometimes we'll have it overnight. It just depends location to location, but when we do have a location overnight or into the middle of the night, when it's 3 a.m., we're very aware that it's 3 a.m.
You have been during those hours as well?
Mm-hmm. We spent the night in one of the most haunted places in America earlier this year, and we literally slept there. And when it was approaching 3 a.m., we headed down to the basement, which was where like all these portals are said to be, and a demonic entity resided. And so we felt like going down at 3 a.m. would be the best time to go down. So that's what we did.
So did something happen during that time?
There was. So we did an Estes method session, which is one of our paranormal experiments. So you could say. Where we plug in our spirit box to noise-canceling headphones, and someone asks a question, and then the person who is under and can't hear the questions being asked won't have an influenced answer. So if someone's asking a question and they say, "Are you here with us?" and the person with the headphones on says yes, that's kind of scary, because how did they know? It's just kind of a way to unbiasedly.
Okay.
Answer questions.
So let me ask you two questions. One is like, what kind of equipment that you use in order to investigate? And can you also give the process of investigation, something like what you just said?
Yeah. So a spirit box, for example, is a really popular tool that we use. And it basically scans through radio stations at a really fast pace. You can forward sweep or reverse sweep depending on the device that you have. And
is it basically adjusting between the frequencies?
You're scanning through it so fast that it's just white noise coming through.
Okay.
So what is said to happen when you're communicating with spirits when you're using this is spirits are said to be able to go through and manipulate those waves and then speak through them. So when you do hear breaks in the white noise that are, maybe it's a word or a sentence, that's supposed to be paranormal communication. So that's how that works. An Estes method is when you take that same spirit box that's doing that and you plug in noise canceling headphones, and then you have to have multiple people, but it's just a way to, because if we were listening to a spirit box, just you and I out loud right now, I might hear something that you might think is different, or we might have asked how many people are here right now, and it might sound like a number, but we're kind of biased because we just asked a question. We know what the question was. With the Estes, it just completely cancels that out. So like there's no bias there. You're able to, if something is answering you and it's answering you right away and directly, you know that is, or you can assume that is a more authentic answer. So that is our favorite way to do it, just so that we can't debunk anything. When we were doing the Estes in that basement, we did it on a portal, of course, and
what is a portal?
A portal is, so in this particular house, there's multiple, and it's just something that has been opened up in the house that allows more spirits to come through. Similar to the veil at 3 a.m., but all the time. It's just open. Yeah.
Interesting. So like this, can you give me a little background about this portal thing? Because
So with the Bellaire house in particular, so this is...
That was the North American house that you were talking about?
Yeah, the Bellaire house. It's said to be one of the most haunted houses in the States. It's in Bellaire, Ohio. And there have been deaths on the house, but it was also, before the house was even created, there was a coal mine, and there was an explosion there. And so I think it was 42-something people had perished in that explosion. So that's already on the land. I think there's an ancient ley line, the world's most ancient ley line. There's a conductor of the Ohio River right across the way, and water is a huge conductor for paranormal activity. So you have a lot of different factors with this property and house that contribute it to being haunted. But with the portals, so when the explosion happened, I guess that created a portal. So they say that's portal number 1. They built the house. And when the Hetheringtons moved into the house,
when you mean portal, it's a portal between the two worlds?
Yes. A portal is a doorway, so to speak, between two worlds, and anything can kind of come through. It's kind of like if you were to do a Ouija board and you're opening something and inviting something in, but that is always open and something's always coming through, and could be a bunch of different things. Yeah. Okay. And there's said to be, they say, around 17 portals in that house, but there's probably a lot more now that people can go in, and unfortunately people open portals when they're not supposed to, and yeah.
Oh wow. And what happens when somebody opens a portal?
Just heightened activity. Lots of heightened activity when portals are opened. Again, you don't know what you're communicating with, because it could be spirits that died in the house or died on the land, but it also could be entities or just things that are passing through because there's a portal there.
And like, has there been any deaths when somebody has opened the portal?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think that anyone's died from a portal being open.
Or maybe like possessed or had some kind of an experience after that?
People have said that they've been possessed in this house before. Oh. Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, how does that possession happen?
I think it all comes down, specifically with possession, I guess teach their own. But my personal take on it, because I've never been... Well, there was one time I thought I got possessed. But
is it?
Yeah, I was a child though, and it's.
Give me a story. Tell me.
So
what happened?
So I always say that the first and only time I ever got possessed was when I was like 10-ish, and I was on a trip with my best friend and her family, and we went to Ottawa in Ontario, and Ottawa's very haunted. There's a lot of history there, and we had just done, maybe my mind was clouded from the ghost walk we were on earlier in the night, because we had gone on a ghost walk. But I just remember, like, I am a pretty sound sleeper. Like, I don't toss or turn in my sleep. Like, once I'm asleep, I'm like a rock. Maybe I snore, but like I'm like a rock. So I've always been like that. So we got back to the hotel. I fall asleep, and all of a sudden I wake up, but I don't have control over my body, and I run towards the door, and I'm like freaking out trying to open it, and then I come to, I'm aware of this, like I remember seeing it from my own eyes, but I just didn't have control over my body. My best friend and her mom was awake at the time in that room, and she saw it all happen. They were just like, yeah, you just sprinted towards the door and tried to get out. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Weird, right? And so I forgot about it. And the next morning, we're going on a tour of the city. We're on like a bus. And I forgot about it. They're reminding me of the situation that happened the night before. They're like, oh yeah, it was really weird. You like got up in the middle of the night and like sprinted towards the door. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I do remember that. And as we're talking about it, there's a trash can just outside the bus window that like right where I'm sitting, burst into flames. Wish I was lying. So I say I was possessed, and that's my only story that I have about possession. But other than that, I haven't been possessed on any investigations. So, yeah.
But like, did that happen again after?
No.
That was the only time.
We did like our own version of feng shui when we got back home to the hotel, and we moved. So the housekeepers probably hated us, but we moved a lot of things around in the room, and I like to think that that's what got the spirits to not come back to me.
And that was when you were 10.
I was 10, yeah, and nothing ever since. So it's 20 years later, and
but there could be like when you are going to these kind of places where you're experiencing these kind of, there like definitely there is a possibility that you're also bringing those kind of energies and with you to the places that you go, like what you experienced at your own home. Yeah. So did that happen frequently after that, or is it something that happens to different places that you go or something?
Different places. There was, I think, probably maybe a couple of entities or spirits that have taken a liking to me during investigations that have come home.
What do you mean by liking?
I feel like maybe they just like my energy or something, so they're just like, I'm gonna come home with her.
Oh, is it?
I think so. Because then there's a heightened activity in my home. I've had mediums tell me that there's an attachment to me, and they've cleared it, and it lined up with everything that was happening prior. Just feeling like low and feeling down like randomly for no reason,
Okay.
So, and then having that confirmed by a medium, it's like, oh, you've been feeling off lately. There, you have like an attachment, like someone's just kind of like lingering. Let me just clear that off of you, and then you feel like better after. Maybe it's placebo, but I like to think that. Well, I don't know. Should I like to think that?
Yeah. No, it is interesting, but like when I've never had these kind of experiences. Of course, I've heard people telling me stories, my family telling me stories about these things, what has happened with my uncle or somebody. But when I think about it, like, why do they even want to communicate and, have that kind of a conversation with you when or they want to take a revenge or something? Like, why is that always the case when we're hearing about these stories?
That's the age-old question. Why would they want to communicate with us? Sometimes they don't. I have been to haunted locations before. There's one off the top of my head that I can think of. We've been to twice. We stayed overnight in this haunted house. It's said to be one of the most haunted in Ontario.
Which one is it?
It's the Beck House in Penetanguishene. And it's an Airbnb, so you can rent out the top floor. And we have friends that have gone there and investigated, and they have had crazy experiences. I think one of our friends have been there like 9 times. I think they've been a lot. They have great experiences every single time, but we've been twice, and each time now that we've gone, it's been disappointing. Like, we try to make communication, and it like barely anything comes through. So sometimes that happens. Like, we go to locations sometimes where there's little to no activity in our equipment, and so it's like, other people have had experiences there. We're just not. So maybe they don't want to talk to us. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they just, who knows? Like, it's the age-old question. Like, why would spirits want to talk to us? Sometimes maybe they have a message for us. Sometimes maybe they are bored, or maybe they want to communicate because they want help or whatever.
So is it that when they're communicating with you, they're stuck in between somewhere of the two worlds?
I think sometimes that's the case. Sometimes spirits, and obviously, this is all up for interpretation, of course, because it's all, there's no, I like to think there's a way to prove it, but someone will always say that that's not proof or whatever.
What is your way of proving it?
So our way of proving it is, we don't fake anything. So we go in and we investigate, and we like to record it and show the world what we're gathering, because it's like mostly for us. Like, we're proving the existence of spirits and our communication with them to us and anyone else who wants to hear or see it. But we're not out here to, if you have a completely different belief, we're not here to change your mind. We're not here to fake things. If we wanted to fake things, we could fake ourselves getting dragged down the hallway. Oh my God, I hope that happens one day. I'd love to be dragged down the hallway.
You're the only person that I've heard who wants to get dragged by a ghost.
Oh my gosh. Literally, I say I want to get dragged down the hallway. One of my teammates, he says that he wants to get like demonic back scratches. Like, we just want to like see something so physical like that happen. Cause like, that's just like, if that were to happen, how crazy would that be, right? I don't know. I'm crazy, but we could fake that and have like a great, like, amazing episode, and people would be like, whoa, that's crazy, but it wouldn't be real. Like, we are in this industry, we are paranormal investigators to get authentic experiences, and we try to debunk everything that happens to us, and sometimes we do debunk it, sometimes we can't, and we're always open to hearing other people's debunking of our communication. But when we go into these places and we investigate and we're trying to make communication, if we're hearing things with our own ears, if we're feeling vibes, we'll say that, we'll make note of it. If we're doing different experiments with our equipment, we'll present that. We'll show everything that's going on, whether there's tons of activity or not. But when obviously we get things, that's when it's proving the communication and the existence to us. But other than that, like, if we're not getting anything, it doesn't mean that place isn't haunted, in my opinion. Because I mean, you're not always going to have activity.
It's maybe during that time the activities are not happening.
100%. And like it could also mean that the place isn't haunted, and maybe
it was just figment of imagination.
Exactly. But I don't know. We try our best to bring the most authentic experience, not just for our audience, but for us. Like at the end of the day, it's us. We want to be experiencing these
You want
things.
to get dragged by a
right.
ghost.
I want to get dragged down the hallway by a ghost. Like drag me to hell, right? Like let's go.
Which is the most haunted place that you have visited?
Oh gosh, that is the age-old question, Sahas. Okay. I keep saying that's age-old question. Like there's so many questions that I wish I had the answer to. There are a number of locations that we have investigated that I don't know if I could say is the most haunted, because obviously I have a team of 2 other people. There's 3 of us in total. And we have different experiences and opinions on each location. So for me personally, when I felt the most activity, I guess, and like for me, when I think back on what made a place the most haunted, it's based off of my own bodily, physical reaction. I think about the Franklin House in Mississauga. It's now a restaurant that you can go to. We investigated it at like 3 a.m, but we like heard bar stools moving downstairs when we were upstairs. And then vice versa, when we were downstairs, we heard things like moving like crazy. And that was a location where I was like, wow, these things are happening. And we had some stuff with our equipment, but it was mostly like things happening around us, like in the atmosphere, like with things being moved around, where it made like, I wasn't crying, but it made tears come to my eyes, if that makes any sense. And I'm like, whoa, like that was so real, because everyone is accounted for. It is 3 a.m. No one is here besides us. And there is literally something physically happening in this space with the environment. That's real. And this is scary. So I always go back to the Franklin House to say that's my most haunted, but I'd probably also say the Bellaire House, obviously. That one was pretty crazy. We stayed there for 8 nights. We got run out.
That was in Ohio?
Ohio, yeah.
Okay. What happened there?
So when we went for 1 night back in the beginning of the year, and then in the summertime we came back and we stayed there for 8 nights. So we now hold the second all-time record for longest stay in that house. Top stay for Canadian teams. And we had a number of experiences during those 8 nights. Someone did get their back scratched. We had a couple new friends from, I think it was West Virginia. They came and stayed a couple nights with us during that time. And the last night they were there, we were doing an Estes method up in the attic, which is said to be like in front of one of the portals. One of the portals up there anyways. Mm-hmm. And we were doing an Estes, and I was sitting beside this kid, okay? I was sitting beside him, and he keeps complaining about like heat. He's like, my back feels hot. My back feels hot. And I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. But, you know, he's right over there, and I'm like, okay. The Estes method finishes, and he's still complaining about his back, and so everyone kind of goes around him, and one of his friends lifts down his shirt, and there's 3 like claw marks right down the center of his back. And I'm like, I'm like looking at their nails, because I'm like, did he do that by accident? Did his friend do that when he like pulled down the shirt? I'm like, no, they all have short nails, and there's like these welts that are just like appearing on his back, and he was beside me. I know he didn't do that during the Estes. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like that was like the most physical thing I saw at that house.
So that literally happened in front of your eyes.
Yes. Yeah. And that was crazy.
It is.
I wish it happened to me.
Oh, God. Amazing.
Yeah.
So that happened in the first day, second day when you were visiting?
That was like the 6th day.
6th day.
Yeah. 6th or 7th. Something like that.
Okay. And that is in Ohio. Anything else would happen here in Canada specifically?
let me rack my brain for a second. So
There are a lot of haunted
There are.
content that you have created and you have posted about, and I was just going through one of few of them. I'll just show it to you.
yeah, no, there's a ton. We mostly investigate Ontario just because that's where we live.
Why is Ontario having a lot of haunted places?
There are haunted places everywhere. I think I get a lot of that question mainly because that's mostly what I cover on my page. The reason I cover it is because I like to go to these locations and film them for my audience. You know, I don't mind doing it if I've never been there and like still sharing that story. I'm starting to get into that now, but I like to actually go there. So I've been specifically, since I started my content creation journey here, I've been specifically searching out Ontario locations and places around me, places that I can go to. So I'm actively seeking it out, and I'm finding a lot of like hidden gems that a lot of people don't know about on just random forums. Sometimes it's like one person's experience, like one person had an experience. So I'm like, that's haunted. Okay, I'm going to tell my audience about it. So there's a lot in Ontario that people just don't know about. But that just goes for around the world. Like, if you really look, you can find so many haunted locations or rumored haunted locations in your area. I am so confident.
There are so many rumors about those things, ghost stories as well, that, you know, this place, a biker was met with a road accident, and then there's a headless body moving across or something like that. I've heard some kind of a story like that.
Is that Ghost Road? No, or Texas Road.
It was Ghost Road, maybe?
Maybe.
Where there were fences and his face got struck or something
I
like
think
that.
that's Ghost Road.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Ghost Road that's in Port Perry is that, so a lot of people go to that location because they say that you can see headlights like of the motorcycle coming down the road, and that has actually been debunked. Like Mythbusters or someone, there's some ghost hunting people came and they found out that the headlights people were seeing, that they were saying was this motorcycle from the accident. There actually was an accident there, supposedly, but as far as the ghost story there, people say that it's something to do with like the field, and then it like bounces off of something. So headlights from another road. It's science. I don't know.
Science.
I didn't go into science. I don't know anything about it, but people say that is debunkable. But that's still a creepy story nonetheless. Like, imagine just seeing like imagine a headless motorcyclist just like driving on the road. That'd be crazy.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Like a ghost rider.
Honestly, literally, I'd love to see that.
So there are like some of the content that I was going through yours Instagram. So there's one Holy Family School in Hamilton.
Yes.
How about that?
So that one's actually interesting. So the Holy Family School in Hamilton, it is currently a film studio. So they film a lot of different shows for Blue Ant Media based out of Toronto. But like it's still mostly a school. I think they film a lot of school-based things there, but they also have tons of sets, like hospital sets. They have a jail cell set, lots of different sets. And that's what they use that space for now. So it's owned by the studio, and they film their television, movie, film projects there. And I was invited there with my team to investigate because people had said that there was a spirit of a little boy that they called George just in the boiler room. And the interesting thing that we noticed when we got there was things happening. We got some spikes on our thermal imager. There was like it was all cold, and then all of a sudden on the thermal imager you could see like these little like spots where there wasn't any heat sources just like popping up, and then they disappeared. Very strange. And then we did some Ouija board sessions. We got some activity on that. But some of the craziest was we did our Estes method session. We did a dual one. So we had two of us in the Estes and people asking questions, and we did it in the boiler room, and we were communicating with multiple different spirits. So we got some of George, and we got some of some nastier spirits. But
explain nastier spirits.
Just some spirits, they have a mouth on them, and they like to use a lot of curse words. Sometimes we cut it. Sometimes we let it run, depending on exactly what they're saying.
And do they always speak in English?
Not all the time. We've heard French come through before. It's mostly been English. We've heard French, and I think, Recently, I think it was Japanese I heard come through.
Interesting.
Or it sounded something like Japanese, and I didn't know what it said. I was under Estes, but I remember saying out loud, I think that was Japanese.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell you what it was. Yeah.
So like when they speak to you, like, are they trying to communicate something? Or
Sometimes. Sometimes you can hear a response back to your questions, or with Estes, someone's asking the question, obviously, and someone else is spewing out the words that are coming through unknowingly. And so sometimes it makes sense, but sometimes it's almost like it's residual. So sometimes there's people coming through. Sometimes there's multiple people coming through, and it sounds like they're talking to each other, but completely disregarding the investigators. So it just depends.
Okay. And that is what you heard in that school, that film school?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. There's one more. The Manor.
Oh, the Manor. Yeah, so that was a crazy episode. So we recently got to investigate this adult entertainment club in Guelph. And it used to be the Sleeman family mansion, and there used to be tunnels that ran under downtown Guelph from the manor to some other buildings. I think it went to the distillery in Guelph. But there was, a lot of, during the Prohibition, there was the rum running and all of that. Al Capone frequented Guelph quite a bit. So there's a lot of history there. And
How old is it? How old is it?
I actually don't know off the top of my head. So we filmed this recently, and the episode actually isn't out yet. So it's going to be our season 3 finale that we're releasing in November. And so we haven't done like the full history tour yet. We went in and investigated. I want to say it's like
1800s,
something like that.
Okay.
Don't quote me. But so but it is quite old. So obviously it used to be the mansion. Now it's an adult entertainment club. It's also like a motel or residences. I'm not entirely sure exactly what's going on, but people are like staying there and like can rent out.
Oh, it could be rented out as well.
Yes. I think for long term. I don't know if it's like, it's around the back it says something about a motel or a hotel. So I don't know if it's short term or if it's like, because other people are saying you can rent it on Facebook Marketplace to like live.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. All I know is there are people that are living there, and people have passed in that facility over the years.
Like they've died.
Yes, there's been multiple deaths in that building. So, and multiple people have had paranormal experiences there. I have heard from staff, from management, that they have all had different paranormal experiences.
I think you made a video also about it. Do you want me to play that?
Yeah, when I first made a video on the manor, people who are locals in Guelph had, whenever I would tell them what I do with the paranormal, they'd always be like, "Oh, have you heard about the manor?" Like, yes, it's such a fantastic location. So we did two separate things. So we would, when we were investigating, I went onto the lower floor first where the change rooms are and like where the tunnels used to be. And then my teammate went upstairs like to investigate the main floor where the club is and everything. And then we switched, and then we met up and did some experiments together. And we got some interesting things. So he got more with spirit box activity. So when he went to the change room, I think it was, he was getting a lot of answers coming through the spirit box that were relevant. So when I met up with him again, I went under for Estes because I had no idea what he had experienced. And we got like multiple of like, in that trailer, you see him ask, "Did you die here?" Or "How did you die?" He said, "How did you die?" And I said, I said sex. I didn't hear what his question was, right? I have my headphones on. He says, "How did you die?" I said sex. He asked again, "How did you die?" Immediately I say sex again. So we're just like, okay, so interesting. We keep going back and forth, and what we came to understand was we were mostly talking with, it appears to be some sort of dancer or someone who had worked there, some female that had worked there. And she had died due to someone else, specifically a man. We did get a man's name. We still have to clarify with a lot of people if this makes sense, but with what was happening and just like all the answers that were coming through and just one after another, it all made sense. And so we had heard that there was ghost stories that some staff had, some management had. Have to double check what those are. We had heard that there was multiple deaths that had happened in the building. So with all of that, plus our experience investigating it, we are under the impression that it is absolutely haunted, to say the least. Yeah.
So what happens, like, if somebody comes to you and says that this place might be haunted, can you come and have a look at it? Then after that, once you approve that, yeah, this is actually haunted, is there any remedies that you also recommend to them?
So it depends. We haven't really had an issue so far. We've had a couple people, a lot of people have come to us and they've said, oh, my place is haunted. We like to ask for proof of some sort first, like if you were able to catch something on video, just to like validate the situation, be like, okay, are they actually experiencing something, or like what's actually going on here? We've done a couple private residences before, and nothing ever came through that was like alarming, or something that people wanted to get rid of. Now, with the Bellaire house, we're actually friends with the owner of the Bellaire house, and so we were able to kind of come to an understanding. Obviously, that's not a private residence, but the owner did used to live in the house before she started like renting it out for paranormal investigators. She has done a lot throughout the years with like people coming in trying to cleanse the space. She's a psychic medium herself, so she's tried to cleanse the space, but there's only so much you can do without like Vatican and Pope introduction, almost just exorcists and stuff. So we give people, the basic rundown of like how to cleanse a space. Use Palo Santo or crystals, vibrate high, sage the place, all that stuff. But if it's anything beyond that, which thankfully we haven't had to deal with like ourselves yet, that would take like a whole other like church kind of intervention, which
that has not happened.
It hasn't happened yet. No, not for us.
Like the kind of spirits or the kind of experiences that you have had so far, they're not that extreme where it is required for some kind of a spiritual intervention. No,
I mean, like we've had to like cleanse ourselves with. Oh well, actually, there was one when we did stay at the Bellaire house for the week. On that last day that we were there, we got run out. So there's said to be, with the Bellaire house, there's said to be two spirits, kind of. So the Bellaire house main spirit is said to be Emily. There's two Emilys though. So there's Emily that is a young woman, like a teenager maybe. She walks around the property, okay? She doesn't ever come into the house. The owner kind of told her, you're not allowed back in this, just stay around the property, okay? She is the real Emily. Anyone in the Bellaire house that experiences anything with Emily, it's always a little girl. And she is not human. So we have had, and our friends that have investigated as well, have had encounters with Emily on the fake Emily. On the last night that we were in the Bellaire house.
Fake Emily as in?
The fake Emily, so she's the demon Emily.
Okay.
Yeah, so not the real Emily, because we experienced her inside the house.
Okay.
So if you're experiencing an Emily in the house, it will always be the demon Emily.
And that is the teenager?
That's the little girl.
That's a little girl?
Yeah. You'll only experience the teenager around the property, like never inside the house.
Okay, so
like on the land.
So one Emily is on the outside, which is the teenager, and the demonic Emily is inside.
Yeah, and she's like mimicking. She's pretending to be the other Emily, the real Emily. Oh,
shit.
If that makes any sense. So like if you're going to experience any Emily, you want to experience the one not in the house. Unfortunately, that's never the case. It's always the Emily inside the house. It's always the little girl. I have a friend who's seen Emily as a little girl on the staircase. I have not. But But on the last night that we were in the Bellaire house, we were about to start investigating, and we realized, and we had the owner with us, Kristen Lee, and I mean, this is all, we filmed it all, so it's all going to come out, but she was like, I just remember we were filming commentary. We were just like sitting down, we had set up the camera, and we're just kind of explaining our feelings on like the last night, because like the night before was when the scratch had happened, or 2 nights before was when the scratch happened with the friend of ours, and so we're doing these commentaries, just kind of explaining our feelings, and all of a sudden I did mine, and then my teammate's doing his, and then Kristen's like, we need to leave the house now. And we got up, ran out of the house. She's like, because again, like I mentioned, she's a psychic medium. She's like, Emily, the fake Emily is here, and she's trying to come home with us. So we had to go leave the property immediately. We had to sage all of our belongings before we went into Kristen's house. And then we literally, she had like this like, I think it's like frankincense and like myrrh and all this stuff. Like, and we had to put it in her hot tub and like basically like baptize ourselves almost.
Yeah. Like a salt water
yeah,
kind of thing?
Yeah. So like we had to just like do a quick little baptism and just like make sure that she wasn't coming home with us. So like that was like the most intense experience in terms of something like demonic potentially coming home with us. It didn't, thank goodness, but I think it's because we took all the precautions that we had to. That's like the closest call that we ever had with anything like that.
I mean, that is quite scary when you think about it.
It was very scary.
How did you feel during that time?
I was terrified. I was like, what is going on? Like they were so excited. Well, not excited. They were scared. But like I remember my teammate, he was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy, dude. This is crazy. And I'm like, okay, just like, I need to breathe for a second, because what is going on right now? Emily's trying to come home with us. Like, what is going on? The fake Emily's trying to come home with us. I don't know. Yeah.
And do you know any story behind it? Like, what is the story behind Emily?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. All I remember was that Emily was like Emily was a real girl. She died, and then she was haunting the house, but Kristen, I don't know if she wasn't necessarily bad. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but Kristen just said she wasn't allowed in the house anymore. So she stayed on the property, but she never comes in because Kristen said like no. So she just kind of
How is he able to say no?
Well, she's a psychic medium, so she does cleansings and stuff, and she like banishes certain spirits. But there's also there comes to be a like Emily, the fake Emily is like a demon and like too strong for just like one person's psychic abilities to be able to banish. You know what I'm saying? Oh. So
just like in Conjuring.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Honestly, both those houses are like very on par. I feel like a lot of people say like the Conjuring house is like the most haunted house in the States. I feel like the Bellaire house is probably, I've never been to the Conjuring house, but I would say the Bellaire house is more. We have friends that have been to both, and they said the Bellaire house is way more haunted. So it's just like, and if you kind of look at the history of both, and obviously there's crazy stuff that happened at the Conjuring house, but the Bellaire house is just like on another level. Because not only do you have, again, like you have all these crazy stories, like there's the fake Emily and the real Emily, and the fake Emily is a demon. And then there's also like these 17 portals, at least in the house, that were opened by one of the owners of the house at one point when he was like diving into the occult after his sister died in the house. So his sister died in the house. He started diving into the occult to communicate with her. He opened some portals. Other people started opening portals when they started coming in to investigate, and like now there's like some sort of demonic entity in the basement. We don't know if it's like satanic or, well, I mean, it's demonic, so but you know what I mean, like it's just, there's a lot going on every aspect. It's a house with 4 stories, so there's the basement, the main floor, upper floor, and attic. Huge house, so many different rooms, and there's just, and like so much history of just like seances happening in that house, and again portals being opened, and and with all the portals that are currently open and all the things that are just coming through the house, it's a hot spot. It's crazy.
Yeah, we have never heard about Bellaire. And most of the people know about Conjuring because there's a movie about it.
Exactly. And I think that's why.
But there should be a movie about the Bellaire.
There should be a movie about the Bellaire house.
But
I will pine for that.
Yeah, maybe we need to find the story behind like what exactly happened.
100%. I've wondered that too. Ever since I learned about the Bellaire house, I'm like, why isn't there a massive movie series about this house too? Like it deserves all of what the Conjuring house has gotten and more.
Yeah,
so.
I was looking at that one of the interviews of the child actors who played in Conjuring, Joey King.
Yes, yeah, she like actually had real paranormal experiences.
Real life experience.
Yes,
and that is what I was fascinated about. Like, and the moment when she moved out of the house, everything went fine.
Yeah, she was like getting sick and like everything. It was just
her blood platelets started deteriorating, and she started feeling like anything that she touched, anything that she scratched, it just put a bruise on her skin or something like that.
It was absolutely crazy. I remember hearing about that and I was like, holy cow. And they didn't even film inside the real house. So it's like, how?
No, but she was saying like at the time when she was there, it only happened during that time.
But it's crazy how that happens. It's almost like just by playing that character and like talking about those things, it was almost like they manifested it or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Manifestation is wild though. Yeah.
So like, do you think like when we have like manifestation works probably the both ways when we are manifesting for all the positives?
Yeah, 100%. Manifestation, if you are thinking about it and if you're thinking about it enough, it will happen. And I strongly believe that. That's why like you never want to put too much thought process, I guess, into negative things because it will just happen.
But how would you stop that when you want, or is it something that you really look forward to?
With the paranormal?
With the paranormal.
I mean, like I want to get dragged down hallways. Like this is like, I'm trying to get the most things happening to me. I don't want, the only thing that I would say that I don't want when it comes to the paranormal and investigating is I don't want possession. Like, I don't want to be like the exorcist throwing up pea soup all over a Vatican priest or whatever. Like, I don't want that.
Have you heard of any of these stories where somebody was possessed and they're levitating or something like that sort happened?
I've heard of stories like that, but I've never experienced anything like that. Like, I'd like to. I shouldn't say this because. Of course, I'd love to see that happen in real time. Like, I'd love to like see an exorcist. Okay, love is a strong word. Hold on, let me rephrase this. It would be interesting to see an exorcism happen and a person literally levitate in front of me. That would be really interesting to see. Obviously, I don't want that to happen to me, and I don't want that to happen to people that I care about, and I don't want that to happen to any person, period, because that would be terrible for the person experiencing that. However, if that was happening, I would like to see it for my own curiosity. And obviously hoping that they are okay. I don't know. It just like that would be, because how do you debunk that? Someone levitating right in front of you? Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, because again, I go into all these things where I want to debunk things. I want to have something happen and be like, okay, can I debunk this? I can't. Cool. So that's real, So I feel like the crazier it is, like the more intense it is and harder to debunk. So,
do you think there are a couple of horror movies which are based on true events?
Absolutely. Oh, there definitely are. And like, I mean, you see the movies like A Haunting in Connecticut, based off of a true story. It says it like in the beginning of the movie. Sometimes you'll see things like that. The Conjuring series, or The Conjuring, the first one, was based off of a real experience. But then there's I truly believe that there's a bunch of other movies out there that we might not know are based off of a true story, but definitely happened. Like how some of these movies that come out that aren't really necessarily based off of a true story, how are people coming up with these ideas? Like maybe there's something subliminal or something slight that happened that triggered or inspired that movie.
There's something about Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, I remember with the Poltergeist.
I think they were having experiences in
yeah,
the set, on
they
the
were
set
having
itself.
experiences on set, and I believe like people said that the set of the Poltergeist was cursed because I'm pretty sure people died after the movie. I don't quote me on that, but I think there was something about the first original Poltergeist movie where people were having weird experiences on set, and then like some people or one person at least I'm pretty sure died. Maybe I should double fact check that, but I swear that I heard that somewhere. The internet is a crazy place.
Yeah. Are you a fan of any of these movies?
Oh yeah, big time. Like the Conjuring, the very first Conjuring movie, I've watched it so many times. Like that is like almost my comfort movie in like a way. Like it just, there's something about it. Like I've seen it so many times. Like I could probably like quote it front to back. But yeah, it just, specifically with the Conjuring, the first one, there's something about just the way it is in nature. Like it just, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's very similar to like things that I'm interested in, and you know, it's obviously you get Ed and Lorraine Warren in there, and they're validating this experience of this family, and they're, you know, helping.
But in general, whenever we see these kind of horror movies, they always show a demon or a satanic entity to be like really gruesome looking, having very different kind of a feature, which is like creepy.
Yeah.
Has any of these real life experiences have told something related to that, you know, these faces look like that, or they look like human?
I mean, specifically, I think with demons in particular, I feel like the way that we portray them with like disfigured faces and, you know, kind of burnt looking, and I feel like, I don't know if that's, you know, placebo almost, where people assume, you know, demons, they come from hell. Hell is a fiery and like a burning pit. So you just assume that demons, you know, their flesh is burnt off and things like that. I don't know if it's that kind of power of suggestion that we think that they look like that, but people have had experience. I haven't seen a demon myself with my own eyes, but people have. So I feel like because of the fact that people have had experiences with demons, people have had experiences with angels, with the amount of people that have, obviously not everyone in the world has, but you can look it up online, and there's different encounters that people have had with angels, demons, spirits, poltergeists, whatever the case may be, fairies. Like there are multiple encounters of people having experiences with these things. So how do they all kind of line up almost? So, well, yes, there could be skeptics that say power of suggestion. You know, you think about a demon and like what it could possibly look like. You see movies, right? But there are people that have experienced it. So it just like, I don't know. There could be multiple different reasons for it, but I think that I feel like most of it comes from the fact that people have had those experiences and they're able to retell those stories, right?
Do you think witchcraft is real?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, witchcraft, I think every single person has a little bit of magic in them at the very least. A lot of it is just untapped. But, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, manifestation is just like a form of witchcraft, basically, right? And in terms of magic, there's people say, you know, it's like unholy or not of God or what have you. I mean, I don't think that witchcraft has any place in like Christianity. It's completely separate, but it's or any other religion like that. But witchcraft is like one of the oldest practiced forms, like paganism. It's one of the oldest practiced like forms of spirituality. So I feel like, I don't know, there's a reason for that, you know? Yeah.
I think like when we're talking about two different worlds, we're talking about angels and demons.
Yes.
And like the way that you go closer to God is by praying to God. And I believe that there could be some people who are praying to the Satan entity or the demons.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and what they say usually is that, you know, if you want to get quicker if you want to take a shortcut route to where you want to go, worship the devil.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that a number of times. And it makes sense, but the thing is, that's like what is the saying? It's you make a deal with the devil, right? When you make a deal with the devil, yeah, you might be granted that wish, that desire, but there's a caveat there. There's, you know, the devil doesn't just give away things for free and just like, oh, you want this? Okay, here you go. Like shortcut fun. Like, no, there's more to it. So you're signing something else away, whether you know it or not. So that's my opinion on that.
Because they say, right, like there's a lot of controversy, not just controversy, like when you go on internet is about weird things.
Yeah.
And you know that, you know, when they talk about, you know, the billionaires of the world, and they say that, you know, like especially when they talk about Elon Musk and they talk about, you know, he's the guy who worships Satan or demonic entities. Do you think there's a possibility for people who are super wealthy or, you know, has been able to reach success in a very short span? I wouldn't say especially for Elon, but like in general, do you think they might be worshipping Satans?
I mean, possibly. I feel like, I mean, especially when we're talking about like celebrities or people of that kind of stature, like the Elon Musks of the world, I feel like that's where a lot of the Illuminati talk comes into play. And I mean, I've never been approached by the Illuminati. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility.
But do you think Illuminati is real?
I think the Illuminati is real.
Really?
I don't know why it wouldn't be. Like, have a secret society that helps, or not necessarily, I don't think it's help. That's probably not the right word. I feel like people might think that they're helping, but a secret society for people that are wealthy and famous, that help keep them wealthy and famous. Why wouldn't there be that? I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of secrets that I don't know them. Government, don't come for me. I don't know these secrets, but like there's no way.
But there is a possibility that you believe that these kind of things could be true.
Yeah, like there's no way that there aren't secrets that are hidden from us civilians, you know, like especially with like the come up of a lot of people. And well, yes, I think there can be a part of Satanism or making deals with devils, etc. with it. I feel like, especially with the Hollywood world of it all, I feel like a lot of it has to be like some sort of Illuminati base, some sort of secret society. It just, I don't know. I feel like there's secrets that we just don't know about, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. Yeah.
So there is a possibility.
Yeah.
Of something like that. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Illuminati, if you want to hit me up, I won't tell anyone.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's in the contract. Amazing. I'm really very interested to know about, I've heard a lot, even when growing up, I've heard a lot about shapeshifters.
Oh, yes.
And growing up, you know, you hear stories, and especially when we were kids, I'm not sure that, you know, my friends would be telling me the real stories or not.
Of course.
But, you know, but you know that these kind of things exist.
Yeah.
Shapeshifters who would, you know, be a cow at once, and the other time it's a dog, and then it's a man. And have you heard anything?
I have had one encounter once with what we think is a skinwalker. So we did an investigation at these old ruins just outside of Cambridge, Ontario. And we were there at night, and it's like these old ruins that are in this like pocket of a forest, and it's like off of a country road. It's in the middle of nowhere, basically. And so we're out there and we start investigating, and we're not really getting much hits on our equipment. Like we have our spirit box, we have a REM pod, and like all these like high tech things, and nothing's really coming through. But we can feel like we know that something is around us. So like in the corner of our eye, we're seeing things like run around, and like obviously you're in the middle of the woods. It's like nice out. You're like, okay, animals. But these were like big, like big animal, possibly, but it was like we could see like things like running through the forest, and it seemed like a person. And specifically with outdoor locations, and this is like something that we always like to take into account, and we hit this first, is okay, there's other people here. Like there's someone that came down here maybe for a bonfire to drink with their friends in the woods because they're teenage, whatever, you know. So you think, okay, it's another person. We make ourselves know. We're like, hi, is there anyone else out here? No one's saying anything. That's when things get weird, because we're like, okay, there's someone else here, but we're asking like them to make themselves known, and they're not saying anything. So now we're sketched out because like, okay, why aren't you talking to us? And, you know, we get one of our teammates to like do kind of like a lap around the place to try to like search out the pockets and like try to find this person.
What time of the day was it?
This was like 11 p.m. midnight.
Okay.
So like late.
Possibly something.
It's possibly something. And so we have one of our teammates kind of do a lap around and like check pockets in the forest and like the bushes. But like whatever this is like moving fast through this forest. And like me and my other teammate are getting sick. Like I actually, when we were leaving, I threw up because I was like, there was so much like negative energy here that I wasn't sure. At first I thought maybe it was nerves, because like, okay, there's someone here that's like messing with us. And for some reason they're the Olympian freaking, what is it called? Like Usain Bolt, like just running around.
Like Flash.
Yeah.
Flash.
But when we're leaving and I end up throwing up, anyways, we talked about it after. We're like, that was really weird. What an odd experience. Okay, whatever. I end up seeing, I was doing like a ghost tour, and there was a psychic medium there. And I got a reading from her, and she was telling me about my most recent investigation, which hadn't been released anywhere. And she was saying, oh, you encountered a skinwalker. I was like, how do you know where I was? How did you know what I experienced? Like what? And like just to a T, like she was like, yeah, you were somewhere in the middle of the woods. What were you doing there? And there was something not good. That was a skinwalker. And so that was crazy that like a medium was able to tell me exactly where I was and what I was experiencing without knowing anything. And that she called it a skinwalker, because at first we didn't know what to call it. We thought maybe it's another person that's just really, really fast and hiding and quiet.
So there is a possibility that skinwalkers could be walking around us.
Oh, 100%. I believe that.
In the middle of the day?
Maybe. That's a good question. I don't know. I never thought about that. I could be a skinwalker. You never know.
There's another term called as mimics.
Yes.
What are those?
So interesting that you asked this. I was talking to a friend of mine who's also a psychic medium earlier this week, and she actually asked me about mimics as well, because I have had an encounter with a mimic, separate occasion.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll explain that in a second. But so she asked me about. She asked me actually what if I've had any encounters with like anything that wasn't a spirit, like paranormal, and like demons or angels, that kind of stuff would all be kind of in the same umbrella. So she's like, and what she was referring to was like Bigfoot, or like, which I haven't, but she was asking that question. But I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, like, well, I've encountered a mimic, unless a mimic is not, because I assumed a mimic was like a cryptid of sorts. But she says, in her opinion, a mimic is a spirit, like a ghost. So I guess that depends on who you ask. I was under the impression that it was a cryptid and like something that wasn't human, not necessarily a demon, but like kind of like on the same kind of like skinwalker shapeshifter format. So I guess depends on who you ask. But so I had an encounter with a mimic earlier this year. My team and I were investigating the historic SDG jail in Cornwall, Ontario. And so it was actually at the very beginning of our investigation, and we decided that we were going to do solos. So we had this portal device, different than a portal like the Bellaire house. It's like a spirit. It's like almost like a spirit box, but it comes through like a speaker.
Okay.
So we had that. It was a device that we were borrowing from the host that was hosting us that evening. And we set it up at the back of this tunnel. So the way the jail is massive, but obviously there's like a basement. I call it a tunnel. Technically, it's just a basement, I guess. But I'm at the back of this basement tunnel hallway. The portal is going. I'm trying to like listen to it, but it's like echoey because it's like a cement hallway. It's loud, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to hear what the portal is saying. My teammates so we have two, we had a guest with us who was actually an original member of our team. They were in the infirmary on the other side of the basement. So it's like this like hospital kind of room, just completely opposite side of the basement. And then our other teammate was upstairs, just like one set of stairs, down a hallway in the kitchen, and he was going live on TikTok. So that's kind of our setup, right? I'm doing my portal session. I'm trying to listen for noises and sounds coming through the spirit box or portal. And all of a sudden I hear footsteps like coming, like shuffling just around the corner. And I was like, is anyone around the corner? Like, who's coming around the corner? And I hear what in the moment sounded like, get out of here. And it sounded like my teammate. And we pull pranks on each other sometimes. We have a little prank war going on. But we're not supposed to do it during active investigations for this reason. And so I was like, Rafe, like, are you around the corner? And he's like, nothing. There's no sound. So it was the shuffling. I asked if someone was there. I heard, get out of here. I asked Rafe, because it sounded like him. I was like, are you there? And then nothing. And then I'm sitting there for like a moment in silence. Nothing is happening. There's no more sounds. I flick on the light and I scream for them to come. I'm like, hey, we need to convene here for a second. Everyone comes over. And that's when I realized that Rafe was past, like, he would have had to walk past where Kelly and James were in the infirmary, because like they were closer to me, but he was upstairs in the kitchen. But this voice that sounded just like him was right around the corner, and we caught it on camera. It sounds more like, yeah, I'm here, or something like that in playback, but it still sounds like him. Like, you can still like hear that that's his voice. But it's not, because he wasn't talking and he wasn't on that floor. Like, he was on a completely separate floor in a different room.
Did he tell you that?
Yeah, like he
I never responded.
Yeah, and I was just like, what's going on? Like, were you pranking me? He's like, I was upstairs. And they were like, and Kelly and James were like, yeah, he wasn't anywhere. And they didn't hear him either. Like, they were just like, yeah, we didn't hear him, and he was way past us. So whatever was sounding like him was right around the corner from me, and it was in my opinion, it was a mimic.
So mimics are the kind of entities who will mimic like a person,
yeah,
or sound like them.
You can either sound like someone. I've heard instances where they've tried to like look like someone else. I feel like that's more rare though. I feel like it's mostly sounds. That is something I heard recently. I was watching a video and someone was talking about mimics, and they said that sometimes they can try to take on the form of someone that you know, but like something is slightly off about them. Like, maybe it's like their eye is like slightly lower, or like maybe they have like 6 fingers or something like that. But like, for the most part, from my understanding, is that they mimic people that you know, and it's to trust you. Because if I don't even want to know, but if I had just gotten up and like walked around the corner towards this voice, what would have happened? Because like, I don't really know, what are our mimics' purpose? I don't know, but I'm assuming not good things.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, has there been a case where you have gone for the investigation, and when you have come back, you felt some kind of a pain, or you felt hurt in some way?
I feel like the most common thing that happens, it doesn't happen after every investigation, but investigations where we deal with something that's maybe a bit more negative, not necessarily demonic, but like maybe something's just not a happy spirit. Sometimes I'll feel sick. I don't know, has there been a head pain? Head pain happens quite a bit, and I feel like that's not necessarily negative things, but just like sometimes there's so much energy that there's just like a pressure in your head. But head pain happens quite a lot. Yeah.
Is there any place in Toronto that you never want to visit again?
I don't think there's a place that I would never visit again. I mean, and specifically in Toronto, I don't know if we've actually investigated.
Or is there any place that you don't want anyone to visit? Because it could be haunting.
That is a good question. I mean, you're talking to me here.
That's why I changed the question, not for you,
Yeah.
but for people who are probably listening to this. Like one of the most scariest experiences that you think should not be had by anyone, except from you, if you want.
I think that everyone should experience every single place I've been. Because...
Which is one place that you would say?
One place I would say. I mean, if people had the opportunity to go into the Manor's basement,
In Guelph?
like we did, yeah, in Guelph, I would say 100% take that opportunity. Like that was a crazy investigation. I can't wait to be able to talk about it more and to like show that investigation because it was crazy. And not everyone people who like live there are down there, and then like the change room. So like the girls and like staff go down there, but like patrons don't get to go down there. So it's like that, like to have that glimpse of what that space looks like as just like a civilian, and like to also have the chance to share it, like that's crazy. And so if you have the opportunity to go down there, like 100% definitely would recommend checking that out. Another place, I mean, a good friendly spirit, like if you don't want to have like something super scary happen, the Ireland House in Burlington, we had like just like some like Casper haunts, we like to call it, just like friendly ghosts, and we were trying to communicate with spirits. We were getting some things, but we noticed like whenever we would try to communicate, something would happen in like another room, and we'd run to that room, and then it would move us somewhere else. So like it was just like a playful spirit at that place.
A hide and seek kind of.
Yeah. So it's like if you want to like experience something fun and like not be scared, Ireland House for sure.
Okay. What's next for you? Like, what is something that you're really looking forward to in terms of haunting investigations?
So we have started planning our next American road trip into the States. So we have some very haunted locations, multiple, that we want to hit up in the springtime in the States. Some of the most haunted, we're talking Bellaire status, down there. So that's exciting. And honestly, I'm just excited for at any time I have the opportunity to investigate places. So next month we're doing an antique shop and a tattoo shop. And
in Toronto?
Just outside of Toronto, kind of like north.
Okay.
And that's super exciting. It's just like and those are kind of opportunities that kind of fell into our laps. So sometimes we'll be invited to locations like this, and those are always just super exciting for me because like, wow, people are having these experiences and they're inviting us into their place of business to see what's going on. And that's always the coolest to me. Yeah.
Is there something that you would want to give an audience an idea that, when something of this sort happens, what they should do immediately after that?
After experiencing something?
After experiencing,
So, I mean, it depends on what they want out of it. Like, if you are experiencing something paranormal, whether it's in your house or, let's say your house, because then it's like something that, you have to live with. If you're experiencing paranormal activity in your house and you don't want to, I would say, I think the number one tip that people always give is say out loud, like, you're not welcome here. I want to be left alone. You're not welcome to stay. You're not welcome to, mess with me, touch me, manifest, and if you don't leave, then I will take further steps. Like, I'll voice this out loud. It might sound crazy because you're talking to nothing. Voice it out loud. If it doesn't go away, then break out the sage, break out the Palo Santo, and then as you're cleansing the space, have the positive intention, positive vibes. And if at that point it should be gone. If it's not, then I would start asking about paranormal investigation teams and things like that to to come in. But other than that, I don't know why that wouldn't work. That's what everyone always says when you're having those kind of experiences and you don't want them.
And also, like, if they want to cleanse themselves after this kind of experience, how would you? Is there some kind of a process to it?
Honestly, just good old sage or Palo Santo. You can get them from spiritual shops, witch shops, and you just kind of burn it. And Palo Santo is nice because it doesn't like ash the way that sage does. It's like it's like a stick, and it smells really good too. And you just burn it, and then you just kind of go around your body, and you go around your family's body, circles all around, make them spin, and just, positive. And again, positive intentions, positive vibes. Try to like brush the smoke onto their clothes as you're cleansing them, and
All right, Krista, thank you so much. I had a lot of spooky vibes today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. This was spectacular.
No, amazing. And for those who want to check out more spooky stuff, it's Hauntingly Krista on TikTok and even on Instagram, right?
Yes, it is.
Do check out our channel. That's where I found her out. And pretty spooky stuff that she's posting, which is why we are having this conversation before the Halloween has actually happened. So thank you, Krista. And I can't wait to release this one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you're not subscribed yet, then click right now and subscribe, because every week I'm going to post a video or a podcast, and it is going to be about marketing, content creation, and business. And if you want to check out some other videos and interviews, then here are some of my recommendations for you.